House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. If you listen to the original version of this, one thing that jumps out at you straight away is that it's got a very distinctive sort of strumming picking pattern that carries the chords throughout the entire song. It is a little bit tricky. It's not straightforward strumming. For that reason, I'm just going to leave it aside for now. I'll have another word about that and I'll demonstrate it at the end so you can see what I'm talking about. But for this playlist, for these songs that I'm doing now, we're doing the simple strumming. So we'll just learn the song with the basic chords and a basic strum, and I will show you later what I mean by that picking and strumming technique that's used. Sounds great, but it's just going to make it a little bit harder to learn the song just to get started with. So that aside, it's a really simple song. The chords that we're going to use are all basic chords. They're the ones that you'll find on your beginner's chord sheet when you first start playing. There's no scary chords or anything to be worried about. The structure of the song is really simple, especially the way that I've arranged it. You've got an introduction and then a verse, and then the introduction doubles up as a little instrumental between each verse, so you've got two chord progressions basically. You've got one pattern to play for the intro, another pattern for the verse, then you play your intro pattern again, verse pattern again, intro pattern again. There is on the original there's a bit of an organ solo on it. I've left that out of my arrangement, again just so that we just keep the spirit of just strumming along without needing all the other instruments and the hassle and stuff that goes with that. As always for this playlist, I'll put a link down to my own song sheet, chord sheet in the description, so have a look at that. It'll be useful for you. That'll tell you which chords to play and the structure of the song. So as I say, it's simple, should be approachable. The hardest thing about it is that actual picking thing that's done on the original, but we'll leave that aside for now. I'll look at it later. There's just a couple of other things that I want to mention that could potentially catch you out if you're not aware of them just going into the song. So before I play anything, I'm just going to mention the first thing is the timing of the song, or the time signature. In other words, the count that we're going to use on the song. I think the other songs that I've done so far on this list have been the normal 4 count, which is probably 99% of most songs that you're going to learn. On this particular song, it's not a 4 count. The signature is called something. It's called 6/8. Don't want to go down the theory rabbit hole, but what that means is we're going to count to 6 for each chord instead of counting to 4. So the first couple of chords in the song are A minor and C. If I was doing it in a 4 count, what I mean is I'll play my A minor chord, count to 4, then play my next chord. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's an example of my 4 count. I'm counting to 6, does exactly what it says on the tin. It's impossible to get the feel of the song if you don't have the count right, so it's quite important that you're aware of this to start with. So with the same 2 chords, the A minor and the C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the 6 count rather than the 4 count. The other thing, I'll probably show it whilst I run through the song, is the turnaround, or the transition in between the 2 different chord progressions. So what I mean by that is we've got one progression that we're going to play for let's say the intro bit. That's what we're going to start with. We've got 8 changes there, so we've got 8 different chord changes we need to make. On the verse, I'll split the verse up into 2 lines, the first line of the verse, the second line of the verse. The first line of the verse has got 8 changes, just like the intro. The chords are different in a different order. But the second line of the verse, there's actually only 6 changes. So it's slightly shorter than the first line of the verse before we transition into the little instrumental bit between the verses. I hope that makes some kind of sense to you. It makes more sense when you listen to it. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because it's quite difficult I found it quite difficult to sort of put it down on my song sheet in a way that it makes sense. So if it doesn't look like it's making sense on my sheet, I just wanted to try and cover that and explain what I'm talking about. So without further ado, the song starts with a a little introduction instrumental bit where before the singing even starts with your basic chords. So again, with your 6 count, you'll count to 6 in between the chords. You can, do it aloud. Eventually you'll do it in your head because you'll probably want to be singing along to the verse bits anyway. But the chords we're going to use are, they're on the song sheet, so I'm not going to call the chords out, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the instrumental introduction. At that point, then we're going to transition into the first verse. So that bit's quite simple because we've played the 8 chords. As I've said, the first line of the verse is going to be 8 chords again. That bit is fairly simple because we're playing 8 and then we're playing 8 again, so in our brain the count seems to be working for us. So the first line of the verse, where it starts off, there is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the second line of the verse is the bit that we're going to play 6 changes instead of the 8 that we've just been playing. So that's the bit we want to make sure we don't get caught out on. So the second line, using verse 1 as an example here, the second line of the verse, it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God, I know I'm one. So the second line of the verse, it's been 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's the end of the verse. So with 2 changes shorter than what we had on the first line of the verse. So after we've played that second line, just those 6 changes, we go directly back into the previous progression, the intro progression that we started off the song with, and then we just alternate in between. I've just played 1 chord along for each change there, just to keep it simple and count along. As I said, I'm not going to give you specific instructions or guidance for the strumming on these. As I said, on this particular song, the strumming picking, it's got quite a distinctive technique to it. But when you're playing along to it, just get a feel for it. Once you start counting in your 6, you might get some ideas, some different ideas of strumming as to what you might normally get excuse me, when you're doing your 4 count. So just as a playthrough, I'll play through the intro just with a little bit of made up strumming and the verse, and then transition back into the intro instrumental bit so that you can see that, not a tricky bit, but the bit that might catch you out with the 8, 8, 6 chord changes. I'll try and make the strumming feel a little bit authentic if I can. Just do whatever comes to mind and whatever you're happy with when you're doing it. To the verse. Back into instrumental. Verse. And that carries on all the way through the different verses of the song. So it's just a case of remembering the 8 chords in a sequence, for the instrumental bit, the intro bit, and then for the verse bit, don't forget you've got 8 chord changes on your first line, 6 chord changes on your second line. Just repeat, 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 over and over and over. So it shouldn't be too difficult, but just bear those things in mind. I started off by mentioning the picking, strumming of the original song being quite distinctive, and it is. It's definitely something that you probably need to work on if you're not familiar with using the different techniques. If you're only familiar with strumming, for example, there's a little bit of sort of right hand trickery that's taking place there. The stuff on your fretting hand is exactly the same. You're going to play the chords exactly the same as what I've just played them, as if you were just strumming them. So your fretting hand is no different. All the magic in this song is in your strumming picking hand. So what's happening? I'll start off. I'll just use the first chord, the A minor, as an example. So I was just strumming on the A minor. On the original song, the guitar player is playing something that sounds a bit more like. So you can hear immediately there's a lot more flavour, a lot more colour in what's happening there. Just real quick, I'm going to cover this in full here, but just to explain what he's actually doing. So my A minor chord, rather than just strumming the chord down, what he's doing is playing the first note of the chord, the lowest note of the chord. In the case of this A minor, that's my open A string. So he's just going to play that to start with. After that, he's going to, the technique's called a rake or a sweep across the strings. It's a bit like a slow strum, so it's faster than picking the notes individually if you're going to pick them one by one, but it's slower than a normal strum. A normal strum, you want to obviously, you're trying to get all the notes to sound together. If I was picking the notes, I distinctively want the notes to sound individual. So it's a little bit sort of in the middle of those two things. It's not as fast as a strum, and it's a bit faster than picking the notes individually. So just raking down across the strings like that. So that's the first bit, and then the end bit of the strumming pattern, you're starting off with in this case the A minor. I'm going to just pick, starting at the highest note, and then going up the strings, 1, 2, 3. So I'm picking my first string, second string, third string. I'm starting off with my root note of the chord, the A, a rake down, and then picking across, back up, 1, 2, 3. You're going to have a go at it, as with everything else. Practice it slowly. You can use more or less that same pattern for all the chords, and just change your chord shapes when you're doing it. So the same thing that I've just done for the A minor, for the C, is the right hand technique for that. Again, don't worry too much about that if that's bogging you down. Just do the strumming, you'll have just as much fun. Once you've got the song in your head, if you feel a little bit more adventurous and you want to have a go at it more, make it sound more like the original recording, that's all you need to do.